Denmark is the most heavily taxed country in the world, or at least almost so. It has a tax to GDP ratio of 40 to 45%, which means that the state collects in taxes almost half of the country's economic activity. And in this video, I'll tell you all the taxes you'll pay as a resident in Denmark. This is going from income to investing to cars to sales, but also some things that are not so obvious and some that are downright scary. And note, this is not a video about the benefits you'll be getting because of all these taxes, and not of what these taxes bring as a benefit to society. I'll just be talking about the money. I'll start with the basics, and these are the taxes that pretty much every adult in Denmark will be paying. And the first of which is income taxes. In Denmark, you can expect to pay 35 to 45% of your income in taxes, but of course the total amount will depend on exactly on how much you earn. So at the end of the scale, so if you earn a lot of money, you can see up to beyond 55% of your income going in taxes. Just note, the income tax in Denmark is not just one simple tax, but it's also made up of multiple components. So there's the labor market contributions, the health contributions, the municipal taxes, the state taxes, and even if you're setting up church taxes. We're not gonna get into all how these things play with each other. Just know that at the end of the day, there's one extraction of your salary, and that's basically based on all these things. You can also use a lot of online calculators to see how much your take-home income, so net income, would be after you pay all these different income taxes. So for example, if you earn 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000 or even 80,000, you can then put that into these online calculators and then see what you will actually be getting in hand. Also note, there's some things you can deduct from your income taxes, which I went through in this video over here. So if you want to lower your income taxes and do it legally, that's a good one to check in. I also want to give two more notes on the income taxes. The first one is that if you are getting paid unemployment benefits, that's technically income, and you'll also be taxed on that income. So even though the calculation for that one is not as straightforward. One thing as well is that if you're coming as an expat, highly paid expat in Denmark with a high salary, so that means over 80,000 krona per month, including pension, you can apply for a special scheme where you pay only 33% in taxes and have that set up for a good number of years. You can only do it the first time you move to Denmark. So if you come to Denmark and then get to that level of salary, no bueno. So you actually need to be like that for your first salary in Denmark. The second one is pensions. In Denmark, it's common for your employer or for yourself, if you're self-employed, to pay 10 to 15% of your income into a pension scheme. The money would then be put into a separate setup where it will be invested until the moment you retire. In a very unique setup to Denmark, at least as far as I'm aware, here we are the only country in the world that will tax you on the gains of those pension investments each year, even if you don't cash them out. And the rate for this is 15%. And importantly, this is taxed on unrealized gains. So if your pension is invested in, for example, exclusively Apple stocks, you will literally have to sell some of those stocks in your pension scheme or put more money into the pension scheme to pay the taxes on the gains of this Apple stock within your pension fund, even if you are decades away from retirement. This is absolutely terrible. It means that if you have a pension scheme in Denmark or a pension fund in Denmark, it will take you a lot longer in the end of the day to accumulate money than it would be in other countries, because you will be having to pay 15% of that gains each year to the state. And over a long period of time, which is basically how long it takes you to get pension, adds up a lot of money. The third tax that most people pay will be the sales tax. And I guess everyone pays this one. So this is the MOMS, the VAT. And Denmark has a flat 25% sales tax that is applied to pretty much everything, which will mean in practice that if you pay 10 krona for a bunch of bananas, 2.5 krona are in taxes, basically going to the government. If you buy a 8,000 krona computer or phone, 2,000 krona of those are going in taxes to the government. So you're not actually giving 8,000 krona to this seller, you're actually having to give 2,000 to the state, or the seller will have to give 2,000 to the state. If you hire someone to clean your house for 400 krona, 100 krona of those will also be in taxes. Again, this is not uncommon. So most countries in Europe have also this type of taxes, or even in other places have also sales taxes. It's very common. But while in many countries you have exceptions on the sales tax or lower rates for things like food, in Denmark there are few or no exceptions, and it's always 25%. Now let's move into advanced taxes. And I mean advanced things that not everyone will be paying. And the first one of which is cars. So in Denmark, cars are taxed heavily. Specifically, there's a registration tax for the cars that will go from 85% to 150% of the price of the car. And this is like super high. And this is basically the main reason why there's so few nice cars in Denmark, despite being such a rich country, because it's just so expensive. And then one thing, and this is something that Denmark is famous for, Denmark puts the VAT or the sales tax on top of other taxes. So for example, once you pay this 85 to 100%, 150% price registration tax fee, Then you also have a 25% VAT on top of that. So, I mean, that's absolutely crazy. It means that cars are super expensive. So in practice, it means that the same car that in Sweden or Germany would cost X is gonna be costing a lot more in Denmark. Also note that these taxes also apply for electric vehicles. There was a time where they didn't, but now if you want to buy an electric vehicle, you'll pay the same taxes. Personally, I don't have a car and just bike, but of course the bike was also bought with this 25% sales markup. But at least it's not 200% or whatever when you start things adding up. Number 5 are the housing taxes. So if you own property in Denmark, you'll pay 2 taxes on the property. One on the tax on the value of the property and the other one on the land where the property sits on. So added up, this can mean a lot of money. For context, for example, a flat in Copenhagen can go from 20,000 krona to 60,000 krona per year in taxes. And this will be, as of 2024, deducted from your salary in the same setup as your income taxes are. To sweeten the deal, as you pay taxes on the house on an ongoing basis, you are exempted of paying capital gains at the moment you go and sell the actual house, which makes that, so long as the house has gone up in value, the best deal in the whole of the Denmark setup is to basically buy a house for a lot of money and then sell it after hopefully has gone up in price a lot, because you will not be paying tax on the sale. If you are enjoying this video, hit subscribe, like this video as well. It helps support the channel and helps me put up content like this every single week. Number 6 are the taxes on investing. And you say it's good to invest. So if you have 1,000 krona or 2,000 krona or 10,000 krona per month, it's good to put that money to work and to multiply itself. I'm a big fan of investing. And in Denmark, investing is complicated, and the taxes especially so. I made a whole video explaining this in depth over here, but in short, you'll pay 27% in taxes or in capital gains for the first 60,000 krona if you have in capital gains, and then 42% for everything over that. And there are basically no loopholes. Also, just if that's not enough, if you buy an index fund or an investment fund that is an ETF and so on, you'll pay unrealized gains. So again, even if you have not sold those funds, you'll pay unrealized gains every year. Again, it's terrible. And you'll pay those unrealized gains one way or the other, directly or indirectly. People just don't get that. Indirectly as well, you'll actually have to be basically conditioning your growth because of the way this setup works. And in my opinion, this is likely the worst part of the whole Danish setup. I mean, Denmark is the only country in the world that does this. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. Just to sweeten the a little bit, there's something called Aktiesparekonto, where you pay for just a little bit of money, so you can put up to 130,000-ish in the Aktiesparekonto. Everything that you have in there will pay just 70%, so 17 versus 27 to 42% in taxes on the gains that you have. But again, you'll pay unrealized gains each year. So even if you don't sell any investments, you need to pay a tax bill each of the year. And if it goes down after and your investment will go down, you don't get any like benefit or money back or anything. You just have to pay. I'm sorry. Now let's get into the expert taxes. So all the way up to now, then you have paid, say, let's say 40% of your income in taxes. So you paid 60 to 70,000 krona for your house and car, and then you paid 25% on everything you bought. And if you had money to invest, you probably got taxed up to 42% of those gains. All while your pension was being taxed in the background. But we are not done. There's a few more things. And these are things that are not applicable for a lot of people, but it's also good for you to know. So if you have a company in Denmark, say like an APS, which is a limited liability company, you'll pay 22% in taxes on the profits of the company. But there are a lot of nuances in the company setup. But that's basically like the ballpark figure you'll be paying. I wouldn't say it's bad. For world standards, it's actually quite low. But remember that the companies in Denmark are also subject to the 25% sales tax. So when you, for example, are in my case selling you, say, a 600 krona course, 25% of those 600 krona will actually go to the state and not to me. Number 8, last but not least, if you're a resident in Denmark and you ever plan to leave, you must know this. There's an exit tax on unrealized gains to, of course, make it more fun. So if you have any asset like a stock or a bond or crucially business shares, so your own company business shares, you'll be taxed on the unrealized gains up to the day you left Denmark, even if you never sold anything. And considering, I mean, that the indexes will be taxed on unrealized gains each year anyway, I mean, that's not that crazy. But for example, I knew myself this was the case in stocks and with index funds that you had this exit tax setup. But what I didn't know is that, again, you have business shares, part of the same story. So let's say you started an APS or you invested in a friend's APS, and like your APS, if you're the owner of the company, you went from like basically the company worth nothing to being worth 5 million. And again, how much the company is worth would be decided by an auditor and not by yourself. The moment you basically stop being a resident in Denmark, you need to pay up to 42% of that, gain of the value of the company to SCAT. So for example, if I start a company in Denmark now, and then 2 years from now, my company is worth 5 million, and I never close it, I want to continue building the company, but I decided to move to another country, I will need to pay 42% of 5 million to SCAT, even if I don't close the company. It's crazy. In a case like this, you'll either need to get a loan to pay this, or close the company, or sell a percentage of the company, or somehow to get your money out of the company. Else you are fucked, so it's pretty complicated. And again, there's more nuance into this. It's not super straightforward, but just know that this makes, of course, Denmark a terrible place to be a proper entrepreneur. And that's why you don't really have a lot of companies from Denmark going super high and international, because if you start your company here and you want to move to Silicon Valley or something, ouch. Now, believe it or not, there's some ways to legally pay less taxes in Denmark, and I go through those in this video over here. Thanks for watching.